Welcome to episode 75 of Fascinating, a Star Trek podcast, The Way to Eden.
In this week's episode, a group of space travellers in search of an idyllic world to settle on come aboard the Enterprise when the vessel they had previously stolen is destroyed attempting to evade capture. One of the group is an old classmate of Chekhov's, and using that relationship, the visitors manage to take control of the ship. With the Enterprise headed for Romulan space, can Kirk regain control in time to avoid starting a war? Or will hostilities reach a new level on his watch?
Gonna crack my knuckles and jump for joy. I got a clean bill of health from Dr. McCoy.
Good afternoon, Ian. How are you?
I'm not too bad, Gerry. How are you?
I have a clean bill of health.
Makes a change.
It does.
People will be pleased to hear that.
Donald Trump one.
No. Your nemesis. This episode is widely regarded as being abysmal.
I've often defended, in fact I've always defended Season 3, the much maligned Season 3. I hold my hands up. This episode was absolutely, what a stinker. Horrific. An assault to the ears for a start.
That's
primarily.
True. But I think it's made out to be so bad that it couldn't help but clear that bar. It's slightly better than the worst thing ever produced for television.
Maybe.
And the singing, I agree with.
Okay, we'll discuss it in depth. Often, I'm sure.
No doubt.
But yeah, it was horrible, atrocious, appalling, disgusting, vile, contemptible.
So just a 20-minute podcast this week.
The only good thing I can say is that because of the singing, it was a bit of padding. So there were a number of scenes where you could just write atrocious singing.
Hippies sing.
Yeah.
Yep.
The fact that they're hippies as well, I've got an issue with that, which we can discuss.
No doubt. Okay, should we go on with it?
Well, let's do the socials first.
Really?
Yeah.
Right, okay. We're at Trek Podcast on Twitter, also on Facebook and on Instagram. We are happy to chat with you on any of those platforms. You can also find us on YouTube, where all the episodes go up on a week-by-week basis, or at a StarTrekPodcast.com, where we post everything with its own little blurb and nice picture for you to come along and share your thoughts.
That's it?
Yeah.
Let's crack on.
Up on the bridge, your favourite starting location?
Yep, Spock and Kirk watch as a stolen space cruiser, the Aurora, is that it?
Yep, Aurora.
With 6 occupants appears on the viewing screen, and it seems to be following them.
Yes, Kirk is trying to communicate without success, and because Uhura is off today, Lieutenant Palmer is having no luck getting through.
Well, no, I think he can get through, but he gets no response.
Well, yes, he's not able to establish communication.
Yeah, he tries
on a two-way basis.
Yeah, he tries to explain that he's orders to detain them, but at this, the cruiser veers away, and so Chekhov is told to pursue and overtake.
Yes, it's heading for Romulan space, which is a big problem.
Yeah, a very big problem. So tractor beams are set to deploy in an attempt to bring them in.
Have we used tractor beams before?
Yep, and combine harvester beams one time.
Anyhow, the cruiser struggles as hard as it possibly can against this tractor beam.
Yes, Spock notes their engines are dangerously overheating, and so Kirk warns the ship to cut its power.
Yes, but it pays no attention and continues its attempts to escape.
But fortunately, Scotty has been able to transport the life forms across just in the nick of time.
As always, the very last second. Whoa, has he done it? In this case, it would be better if he hadn't.
Certainly. I would like to have seen them die in pain. Scotty
seems singularly unimpressed with his new guests.
Yeah, we get a glimpse of the strange-looking lot. We see they're holding their hands together in a triangle shape. It's a bit annoying. I've mentioned him before, I think, in this podcast. It reminds me of somebody like Gareth Bale doing the little goal-scoring...
Oh, I hate that.
Love-heart celebration.
I hate the fact it's become popular.
Yeah. Well, is it now? I don't think anyone does it now, but it did become...
People still
do that.
Mm-hmm.
Vomit-inducing. Stop it. Anyway, they're making a little sign, a triangle sign or something with a
Illuminati of some kind.
yeah, whilst wearing some garish clothes, and there's one chap with huge, terrible fake ears.
You sure that's not his own ears?
Yeah, perhaps they're meant to be.
Yeah. We get a brief pause for the credits and we return with a captain's log.
5832.3.
Where we learn that one of these 6 is the son of the Cthulhan ambassador, which makes things a bit more complicated.
Why?
Because they have to handle him with extreme delicacy due to treaty negotiations between the Federation and Cthulhu, which are at a critical step.
Oh, Kirk won't like this. Red tape bureaucracy. On the bridge.
Yes, Kirk's still on the call to Scotty and tells him to take the group to the briefing room, but they refuse, referring to Kirk as a Herbert and sitting on the floor.
Yeah, but more interestingly, there's a woman's voice who I think Chekhov recognises.
Yeah, he certainly perks up when she speaks.
In fact, I think he mentions her name here.
I think that's later on, isn't it?
Oh, I think it's here. Irina. Anyway, Scotty tells Kirk the group are refusing to go anywhere. They're sitting on the floor chanting in protest.
Yes, he asks whether he should send for security, but Kirk says no, he'll come down himself while we hear them chanting, no go, no go, no go, which continues as he arrives.
It does. Kirk arrives and immediately demands to know who Tongo Rad is.
So you can shoot him for having such a stupid name.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a stupid name and a stupid look. The oddball stands up and Kirk warns him that he's lucky not to be under arrest and has his father's position to thank for that.
I think this is a mistake by Kirk.
Letting him know that there's no consequences, yeah.
Yeah, but carte blanche now.
Yeah, effectively, you can do whatever you like, yes.
So we assume that his father is this Cthulhan ambassador.
Yes.
Rad or Tongo, what do you want to call him? Let's say Rad.
I call him Tongo, but Rad's fine, yeah.
He doesn't engage much, he just kind of comes up with a couple of unintelligible statements and calls Kirk a Herbert.
Yeah, he's a brat.
An idiot and a brat.
Mm-hmm. So Kirk tells Spock to take them to sickbay for a checkup, but he asks for permission to try a different approach.
1.
We are one.
1 is the beginning.
Are you one, Herbert?
I am not Herbert.
He's not Herbert. We reach.
If you will state your purpose and your objectives, perhaps we can arrive at a mutual understanding.
If you understand one, you know our purpose.
I would prefer that you state it.
We turn our backs on confusion and seek the beginning.
What is your destination?
The planet Eden. That planet is a myth. And we protest against being harassed, pursued, attacked, seized, and transported here against our wishes. Right, brother. We do not recognize Federation regulations nor the existence of hostilities. We recognize no authority save that within ourselves.
Well, whether you recognize authority or not, I am it on this ship. I am under orders to transport you back to Starbase peaceably. From there, you'll be ferried to your various planets. Because of my orders, you are not prisoners, but my guests. I expect you to behave as such.
Oh, Herbert, you are stiff.
Mr. Spock, you seem to understand these people. You will deal with them.
We respectfully request that you take us to Eden.
And after they're finished in sickbay, see to it that they're escorted back to their proper quarters and given whatever care they need.
Yes, Captain.
We respectfully request that you take us to Eden.
I have orders to the contrary. This is not a passenger ship.
Herbert, 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 Herbert.
Herbert. This is the first scene which really highlights the repulsiveness of this episode, and I think one of the reasons why I detested it so much, I feel I can't take either side. I think that both parties here are just both quite irritating. Their positions are both too extreme.
Spock's irritating as well.
Spock's, well, do you think so? I mean, I thought Spock was one of the more, as we learn through the episode, he's more sympathetic and a bit more relaxed. Chekhov, I think, in this episode was a wee arse. And Kirk, at least, I think there's some sort of arc to his position, which was nice enough.
Mm.
But
McCoy's just a bit gruff with everybody.
Yeah,
He always is.
And Scotty's just an old man.
Yeah.
But see, that's the
Off
thing
my
as
lawn.
well. It's like even Kirk, he's the old man, but he's only in his 30s and he's acting like, I don't know.
Well, what do you want him to do, though? He's got orders to bring them to the starbase.
True. I think that's the position as well. Here's the thing. I don't particularly like the whole notion of this federation. I think it's far too militaristic. It's got the feeling of, I don't know, it's effectively military. And they're going about these planets, and we've seen the havoc they can cause, the deaths that have caused. They've tried to go and exploit different peoples for the resources on the planet as well. And it's just, I don't know, the Federation. I think the type of person who would sign up for it has to be the type who would sign up to the army. I'm not sure, but the other extreme is this these hippie types. There has to be a balance, and I don't like them either. I don't like their language. I don't like the writing that they've been given here. I think it's disgusting. They're annoying. It's just no. I don't side with any party here. I just think it's both. Can't be bothered.
Oh, and that's the end of this week's episode.
Anyway, mini rant over. There'll probably be another one coming up.
The stakes in this episode are so low. Well.
That's what I'm saying. I even forgot about what was happening. It's the one to go to this Eden and
apart from the last 5 minutes.
Yeah.
The whole way through is it.
That's the thing is, what they're after, they just want to be taken to this planet.
But they don't know what planet or where it is or how to get there.
Again, as you say, there isn't any stakes. You just say to them, do you know what? Right, okay, we'll take you there. If that's what you want, you're really irritating. See if you shut up, we'll take you there. Just be quiet. You know?
But that could lead to the breakdown of the Catulan ambassador's talks. He wants his son brought back.
No, but you just say, listen, you speak to your dad then and work it out.
Leave us out of it.
Leave it out. Yeah, we'll do whatever your dad comes up. If you can persuade your dad, then we'll do it. If not, yeah, I just really don't care.
Yeah.
It's just like, the father and son relationship, the parent and the child. And
yeah, there's no angle here that's engaging.
No.
Should we move on a wee bit?
Yeah, we're on the bridge.
Yeah, Kirk has substitute Uhura advise Starfleet that the 6 suspects are aboard, but that the cruiser was destroyed, and she should add a personal note to the Catulan ambassador confirming that his son is safe.
At this point, Chekhov admits to knowing Irina and says that they were together at the academy. Kirk can hardly believe one of these types was in the academy. It's like, again, one of these types, not some sort of square.
Well, not someone who's a military person.
Yeah.
Signed up for the military academy and then left.
Yeah, we find out that she dropped out.
Yes.
And I think Chekhov clearly there's feelings, or there was something there in the past.
Yeah, Kirk sends him off to go and speak to her. What, he's working?
Yeah.
Why are you sending him off?
Exactly. Asking for trouble here.
Spock shows up at this point, confirming that the 6 of them are in sickbay, and Kirk asks him whether they really believe in Eden, but then cuts off Spock's explanation about myths being based in truth when he realises, or is told by Spock, that Dr. Severin is the leader of the group.
Yeah, and they're not a stupid group. I think he knows, well, certainly Severin isn't. Even Kirk has heard of him. He's apparently a brilliant engineer who was dismissed from his position.
Yeah, we need to know what he's an engineer in. So
Okay.
he's a research engineer in the field of acoustics, communication and electronics on the planet Tiburon.
He can't be happy with if acoustics are his thing.
Well, it's going to come up later on.
Yeah, anyway, so he was dismissed from that position after starting this movement.
Yes, and the ambassador's son, Rad or Tongo, is an expert in space studies, whatever that means.
Yeah, just like his dad, yeah, space studies.
Is that the physics of space or the politics of space?
Generic.
Yeah. Spock at this point expresses a degree of sympathy for their position, noting that there are many people who are, quotes, uncomfortable with what we have created. That's like yourself.
Yes. Kirk is aghast at this, claiming they have rejected technology, although Spock claims that it's an almost biological rebellion against the planned and sterilised atmospheres that society lives in. I'm not sure if that's such a thing, a biological rebellion.
No, that's, yeah. I suppose it means instinctive.
But even then, is it? I think, rebellions are
rebelling against technology.
to do with, your environment as opposed to...
It's like these people who won't have a smartphone and they go for walks in the mountains and stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Strange folk, don't trust them.
No.
Yeah, so Spock says they hunger for this Eden, whether it exists or not.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I mean, I think Kirk tries to imply that he understands, but immediately starts criticising them for stealing the cruiser and acting like children, and asks why Spock has sympathies for them.
Yeah, Kirk understands that, yes, it would be nice to live in paradise, but this is the real world, essentially.
Mm-hmm.
You have to behave like an adult.
However, Spock claims that he doesn't sympathise as such, he's simply curious, and their feeling of being an alien in their own world resonates with him.
He has empathy.
Yeah, but is it their own world? That's the thing. What are the ears all about? So where does this other guy come from?
He comes from Tiburon.
Right.
And didn't feel at home there. Another guy comes from the Ambassador's planet and didn't feel at home. These folk are all
Irina, she comes from Russia, I think. She's
probably from Earth, yeah, which is a main player in the Federation. So they all felt that they weren't at home. And then it's not quite the same as Spock, who was literally from two planets and not at home in either place.
Kirk then somewhat sheepishly asks what a Herbert means.
Yeah, so he explained at this point this is an in-joke. Apparently it was inserted at the request of Douglas Kramer, the production executive, as a dig at his predecessor Herbert solo.
Okay, Herbert.
Herb. Spock explains to Kirk that it's an uncomplimentary remark, that Herbert was a minor official, notorious for his rigid and limited patterns of thought. So there you go, Mr. Solo. That's what they think of you.
Yeah, this Kirk straightens up and tells Spock he will try to be less rigid in his thinking, which I think is fair enough. He is fairly open to...
Yeah, normally what you'd say is, I'm not going to take anything on board from these hippies. I can't learn from them.
Yeah, so that's something on the plus side.
Down in sickbay, the folk are having a concert.
Is it sickbay or is it the transporter room?
I think they're still in sickbay at the moment.
Okay.
Get their physicals.
Yeah, the group are watching with smiles as one of them mimes over some, as we said, atrocious music, which he is meant to be playing and singing. It's really horrible, while wearing a utterly horrific outfit. Now, here's the thing. I'm all for guys wearing dresses and different clothes, but just like anyone else, some people can pull it off and some people can't. This just looks horrendous on him. It's like something, he's wearing thigh-high boots and it looks like something that Miley Cyrus would have worn back in the day.
She might have been a bit exposed wearing this outfit.
In fact, is this not actually, I'm looking at this now, the thigh-high boots, is this not exactly the same design that Julia Roberts wore at the start of Pretty Woman?
I don't know.
I think it might be.
You should look into that.
It's got that little, it's got a ring that holds the top and the bottom part together in the thigh-high boots. Yes, I think that's where I recognised that from.
Okay. In any event, they're doing their music thing. I think Tongo Rad's playing some bongos in the background.
Oh, Tongo, even his name.
It's radical.
He's not radical at all, he's just like stupid.
Chekhov shows up asking for Irina, but he's told that she is taking her physical.
Yeah, and then is there not a bit of a rap? It's not that was intro we heard from...
Dr. McCoy says he's fine,
yeah.
Well, I might have got the rhyme wrong there. Chapel comes through with two assistants to get Severin, and they have to carry him through to the next room. I don't know what's going on there.
And then Irina returns and is pleased to see her former colleague, who asks her into the corridor so that they can speak in private.
She addresses him as Pavel Andreevich, which I think is the first time we hear his middle name.
Yeah. And rather than respect her decision, he criticises her for what she's done and claims that he is proud of his path.
This whole discussion was incredibly boring.
Yeah, although she was quite hot, I must admit.
It's like, oh, you're too square. Oh, you're too free-spirited. No, you're too square. No, It's your free spirit that's the problem.
She claims she doesn't want to fight and talks of how she was looking forward to seeing him when she knew that he was on board the Enterprise.
Well, I think she kind of knew he was on the Enterprise, but when she heard the Enterprise was what was pursuing them,
right,
she was hoping she might meet him. They move through into the rec room at this point. Yeah,
that's after. Yeah, because I think they hold hands and they get some odd-looking stares and grins from other crew members.
Yeah. Then they move into the rec room where she asks him if he's happy, and he says yes, so she accepts that. But then they start arguing again about who left who and what happened when they came back. And,
so that's the thing. I just don't care. They're trying to make it as if I should care about. I don't.
I've written down here. It's a really boring argument.
Yeah. Not interested in this wee guy. And I'll tell you another thing. His hair is shocking in this episode. He's got a dreadful comb over from back to front.
Yeah, it's embarrassing.
It is.
He accuses her of lacking feeling and not being present, and She accuses him of always disapproving of her, and she accuses him of having internal conflict. She thinks he's more of a free spirit than he's letting on, and he sends her off back to her friends, and she heads off, and we hear a commotion out in the corridor.
Yeah, so Chekhov goes out to see what's happening, and the hippies are demanding that Dr. Severin is freed, and they're trying to push their way into sickbay. So
It's
Chekhov,
only a minute since he went into sickbay.
yeah, exactly. So Chekhov, he takes up not arms, but
He joins the security guards anyway.
yeah, an oppressor.
Oh, he's working, keeping order.
Anyway, in sickbay, Chapel herself acts a bit of an arse.
Well, she calls the hippies animals as we hear the chants of Herbert.
Really? Animals because you don't agree with their view? I mean, it's
Well, it's their behaviour. They're out chanting at the door when they could be sitting quietly somewhere.
I mean, don't get me wrong, the chanting is annoying, but they're not acting like animals by protesting.
For some reason, Kirk's here.
He is indeed, and McCoy reveals to him what he has discovered about Severin.
Friend here didn't want a checkup. Turns out there's a reason.
I refuse to accept your findings.
You don't have the choice.
They're the product of prejudice, not science.
I don't know what this man was planning on doing on a primitive planet, but assuming one did exist, I can tell you what would have happened had he settled it.
Untrue.
There would have been enough of those primitives left to bury their dead.
Fantasy.
I wish it were. There's a nasty little bug evolved in the last few years, Jim. Our aseptic, sterilized civilization has produced it. Since the coccus novi, it's deadly. We can immunize against it, but we haven't learned to lick all the problems yet. Does he have it? What about the others? Well, the others are clear. He doesn't have it. He's a carrier. Remember your ancient history, Typhoid Mary? He's immune to it, as she was. But he carries the disease and spreads it to others. Is the crew in danger? I don't know. They all had full-spectrum immunizations before boarding. Now, my guess is that his friends have had their shots, too. But a regular program of booster shots is necessary. I'll have to check everyone on the ship. There could be some skips. In the meantime, he should be placed in total isolation.
This is outrageous. You're not isolating me, you're imprisoning me. You invent the crime, find me guilty, and sentence me.
Would you like to run the test yourself, Doctor? You knew you were a carrier before you came aboard, didn't you?
No!
Then why did you fight the examination?
It was an infringement on my rights.
Put him in isolation.
So Severin is a bloody anti-vaxxer.
So it seems.
Yeah, my rights.
Magna Carta. I do not believe in your authority.
He is dragged. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? Anyway, he's dragged out with orders for a guard to be placed on him 24/7. As McCoy warns, there will be protests from the others. Well, there already is protests.
Yeah, it's not going to change anything. McCoy also says that it will take 24 hours to know whether the crew is in danger.
Out in the corridor, the hippies are sitting on the floor making their wee hand sign, whilst one of them is trying to convince the gormless Sulu to join them by asking him to think his age. I think he admits to being a bit tempted.
Yeah, and Kirk shows up asking him to explain himself.
Yeah, I think he sort of snaps out at that point, and we hear that Severin will be released as soon as they know that he's safe.
Which
medically.
Maybe never.
Yeah. Well,
the hippies I've written down here sing and chant. I didn't write what they said.
Well, I've got it's another vomit-inducing number. And then there's some shouting before the Kirk and the others make an escape into the turbo lift, followed by chants of Herbert again.
Up on the bridge, we get a call from Scotty, who's had to chuck a hippie out of engineering. He's not happy about it.
No, Scotty is the type. I think he would have been there with batons, give him a smack if he had the chance.
Yeah, in the head, yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Kirk asks Spock to try and get them to behave, and he says he'll try. And Kirk notes that if it wasn't for the ambassador's son, they'd all be in the brig right now, which would be much easier to manage.
Mm-hmm. Captain's log 5832.5.
Kirk rails against the arrogance of Severin and his followers, as it's creating an intolerable situation, and if it keeps going, he may have to breach his orders to treat them with extreme tolerance.
Like I say, send in the black shirts with the batons.
So
Sort those hippies
kettle them down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the cell, Spock is trying to get Severin to reason with the others, and in exchange offers to use his resources to find out if Eden actually exists, and to find it if it does.
He also says that if they do end up charging them with any crimes, it will make their future more difficult. It'll be harder for them to get Starfleet backing for anything if they are criminals.
Yeah. Why is he? I want to know why he's offering all this. I mean, they're just annoying.
Yeah.
It's not. You don't have to negotiate. They're not threatening to blow anything up at
I
this
think
point.
Spock respects this guy and wants to help him,
Yeah.
even if he is slightly crazy. He gets Severin to admit that he knew he was a carrier, but he also says that the restrictions that were therefore placed on him, which limited him to high-tech environments, were anathema to him, and he needs to be cleansed by primitive people like his friends. This is injecting disinfectant levels of nonsense.
Yeah. He goes on to claim that the computer programs on board the ship are what bred what his body carries, and only the primitives can cleanse him, and only their way of living is right. What does he mean by
Oh, he's talking nonsense.
This is maybe where he realises he's insane.
Maybe. Spock notes at this point that Severin just spending time with these other people could cause them to become infected and die. He would destroy them. But he replies that they will all be one and build a wonderful world together. He's either ignoring willfully these consequences or he
totally
can't
deluded.
understand them.
He then turns and predicts that Spock will try and persuade him his technology will be able to cure him, and that he will then be allowed to go free if he convinces the others.
Spock agrees, yes, this is in fact the case.
And so oddly, Severin says, yeah, okay then, I'll do that.
Yeah, fair enough.
On the bridge. I like this about turn here.
Yeah, Spock immediately tells Kirk that Severin is completely insane.
Bonkers, madman, nut job.
I mean, it seems a bit of a leap from what we've just seen.
Yeah.
And from the whole episode up to this point.
Mm-hmm. Kirk says he will have McCoy check him out, because obviously Spock's not a doctor.
Yeah.
And consoles him on the sort of obvious downfall of a person whom he respected.
Spock, though, says this does not affect his interest in their movement, and he wants to find Eden as well.
So he wants to keep a promise.
And he also wants Chekhov to help him.
Kirk seems a bit bemused, but allows this, says, yeah, fine, okay.
Yeah, and then calls McCoy and says he needs to speak with him.
We then have a captain's log 5832.6.
Yeah, rather than showing the conversation with McCoy, he just tells us what happened.
What was that?
He asked him to verify Spock's suspicion of Severin's insanity, and notes what Severin said to Spock, that he will order his disciples to conform for now. Interesting use of the word disciples.
Yes.
He said more cultish.
Yeah, and there's a reference obviously to Eden and what we the end of the episode. In Spock's quarters.
Can we just skip this scene?
I'd like to skip it, but I've got here the big Egypt hippie. I think that's Adam.
Adam shows up to see Spock and has a wee go on his lyre, and then Spock shows him how it's really done. And then he invites Spock to come jam with them, and Spock is quite happy to agree.
Okay. Over in the auxiliary control room, Irina enters where a sullen Chekhov is working, and when she asks him what the purpose of the room is, he very happily tells her.
Yes. She apologises for teasing him earlier, but he's not interested in discussing it.
Yeah, he's acting like a
I think he's in a huff. He doesn't want to find Eden. He doesn't want to be doing this project, and he's being forced to.
She says she doesn't like to see him angry, but she's quite keen to know what he's working on, and he tells her that he's helping find Eden, which she thinks is him teasing her.
Yeah, and when she says she doesn't like that he's angry, he gives the typical abuser's response of, "You make me angry."
Yes. He rambles on about what he's doing and how he's using the stars or something to find this planet, before getting hot and bothered whilst describing how he learns.
What I do not know, I find out from the computer banks. If I knew nothing at all, I could navigate the ship simply by studying what is stored in there. They contain the sum of all human knowledge. They solve our problems of navigation, of control, of life support.
They tell you what to do, and you do what they tell you.
No. We use our own judgment also.
I could never obey a computer.
You could never listen to anyone. You always had to be different.
Not different. What I wanted to be. There is nothing wrong in doing what you want.
not receiving, Mr. Chekhov. Spock to Chekhov, repeat. I am not receiving.
I am sorry, Mr. Spock. I was momentarily delayed.
Even that was quite nauseating.
Yeah. In the guest quarters,
The hippie room.
they are discussing some sort of plan now, so this is a change of tone.
Yeah, the gang minus Severin gather and we discover that they all have been finding out things about the ship.
We saw this in Mud's Women. A little bit, the three women went out and spoke to various crew members to learn more about how the ship operated.
We did indeed. This includes Irina, who tells them about the auxiliary room and that the computers have all the information that they need.
The plan now is to go out and be friendly to everybody, see if they can recruit some people to their cause and not cause any difficulty for themselves.
And at the same time we see Severin in his cell standing with a knowing smile.
We then go to the rec room where the jam session's taking place. Spock's here to join in and the whole ship is listening through the speakers.
Yeah, this is horrible. For some inexplicable reason, others around the ship are really digging it and getting into it as they dance and they play their guitar, the air guitar, and they snap their fingers, amen, and that's not groovy, all that sort of crap.
Meanwhile, we see Rad, or Tongo, in the brig, climbing a ladder and using pressure points to knock out the guard.
Yeah, we should also say that one of the women is playing a bike wheel.
I thought it was a bin lid.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Back in the bridge, old man...
Wait. We've missed the fact that why Rad's in the brig. He's releasing Severin.
Did you not say that?
No, I said he knocked out the guard.
Ah, right, yes, and he lets Severin go. On the bridge, old man Scotty scowls at a red shirt for enjoying the music.
Stop being so young.
Yeah, stop enjoying music. I mean, he's right, he shouldn't enjoy this crap, but,
yeah, but
he doesn't, yeah. And he looks on in dismay at Sulu for doing the same before he concedes to Kirk that at least they know where the hippies are and what they're doing.
That's ironic. Kirk says that he too got into trouble at that age and not to be so square, man.
Yeah, don't think Scotty appreciates that.
Meanwhile, we see Tongo Rad take out the man on duty in auxiliary control, and then him and Severin sitting down to start making their changes.
Yeah, the awful music continues. And finally, Spock stops to a round of applause.
I think they're applauding him stopping.
Yes. On the bridge, Sulu notices that he has lost control, and Scotty confirms that power is now with auxiliary.
Yes, and when Kirk opens the channel to auxiliary control, it's Severin who answers, noting that he is now running the ship.
Yeah, and he won't be returning it until they get to Eden, and will destroy it if they try and prevent him.
Now, it took 3 senior officers with special codes to try and destroy the ship previously.
Yeah, it seems that security is so lax. Well, it's understandable because we know that the security guards are absolutely hopeless at whatever they do. But yeah, it seems anyone can just walk in, a quick chat with Chekhov. How does that work? Oh yeah, that's the computer that runs everything. Yeah, cool, that's fine. And now we've locked you out. Anyway, Sulu lets Kirk know that they're heading into Romulan space, and he is worried as he knows that they will be spotted soon.
As we've seen previously, as soon as you enter Romulan space, they're there.
Oh, I'm expecting any second now.
Inevitable.
Kirk explains to him the consequences of entering this space and advises, as we're talking about Severin here, to return to Starbase where no charges will be brought against him. Why not?
It's the only leverage he's really got, I suppose, at this stage.
Yeah, I hope he'd be lying.
Yeah.
No charges will be brought as soon as he's down there handcuffed.
No charges, except for all these ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He goes on to point out that if they don't, they won't reach Eden, as the Romulans will inevitably destroy them.
Then Adam winds everybody up with some sarcasm.
What does he say?
He says, "Oh, you sound scared, man."
Yeah, jelly in his belly or something like that. Christ. So Kirk tries a different approach and tells this Adam and Tongo that they're being used by a madman.
Yeah, that's bound to be persuasive.
No, they just laugh at him.
Kirk asks Spock to explain, and he addresses Adam directly, trying to get him to look on the computer, but he just responds with more sarcasm.
Yeah, I think Spock tells him that he is a carrier of this deadly strain and also a crazy person, medically proven.
Yeah, Adam's got no interest in checking into this.
No.
Spock then tries even harder, saying there's a tragic difference between what Adam wants and what Severin is going to deliver, but once again we get sarcasm, which makes me want Adam to die.
Yes. It turns off the communications.
Rad notes that Chekhov and Spock have found Eden, and they're only 3 hours away. That's convenient.
Yeah, really? Only 3 hours away from this planet it's apparently a bit of a myth, a bit of a legend. We don't know if it exists or not.
Yeah, well, here it is.
Yeah.
Right there.
I mean, how could that not been charted?
I don't know.
Severin predicts that the crew will attempt another attack, and he starts to make adjustments to the ship's circuits. And while he does this, Adam starts his crap again and tries to provide a soundtrack with what I think is probably the worst line in music that I have ever heard.
Gonna live like a king on whatever I find. Eat all the fruit and throw away the rind.
It just makes me want to eat my own knuckles.
And also the rind, just to make a point. Spock, at this point, notes that they are within sensor range of this Eden and approaching. And
so Kirk takes Spotty and Scotty with them to do what they have to do.
And they have to do it now.
Yes. We return to the auxiliary room, where we discover what Severin's master plan is.
When will you use that?
At the proper time. Let me know when we're in orbit.
Approaching right on the dot, just as they plotted it, Brother Severin.
What will that do to them? What is it?
Well, I'm using sound against them. Beyond the ultrasonic, it will stun them and allow us time to leave. We'll go in one of their shuttlecraft.
Sound pitched that high doesn't stun. It destroys. I remember when we read in the text that it...
I've gone beyond those texts, Serena. It's correct for you to be concerned, but be assured also.
We are in orbit over Eden, Brother Severin. It does destroy.
We cannot allow them to come after us.
It will not reach us in here. I can control it all. I have adjusted it so that it will suspend its effects after a few moments and allow us time to escape. Then, after we've gone, it will automatically reactivate. Rejoice, brethren. Soon we shall step together into Eden.
What was that noise there?
That was Scotty cutting through the wall with a phaser.
Yeah. Quite old school. Quite, yeah.
You'd think they would have some kind of override.
Mm-hmm. In retaliation, Severin deploys his sound weapon, which unusually affects Spock first and most severely.
No, I think that's not that unusual because Vulcans have better hearing.
It's unusual in the sense that Spock's generally the person who doesn't get affected by things in the show. Eventually everyone collapses, which Adam thinks is his signal to begin singing again.
And Severin tells them they can leave now, and some time passes.
So a little later, the crew start to recover, and Spock explains to Kirk that he needs to stop the ultrasonics, which he stumbles through and does.
It's not clear how they recover if the sound's still playing.
And it's also, we're told it would destroy them. It didn't. It just knocked them out for a little bit with no long-term effects.
Again, yeah. Anyway, Kirk staggers into the room, turns it off, and then shouts around all the different areas of the ship, immediately wanting a response until he hears from Sulu.
Is it Sulu? I thought it was Chekhov.
He hears initially from Sulu and then Chekhov.
Okay, what do they tell them?
That control of the ship remains in auxiliary, which is where Kirk is, so that's not a problem. And that they can leave orbit if they need to.
Someone from the hangar deck then communicates through to inform him that a shuttlecraft is missing, which Spock has picked up on his sensors. Where is it?
On the planet's surface, but there are no other humanoids or animals on the planet.
In that case, it'll be teaming with them when they get down.
Spock's always wrong. Yeah. He also said there's no Romulans coming, which is not reassuring given his record. Kirk now talks to McCoy, who's fine, and tells him to meet them in the transporter room with his full medical gear.
I thought they were going to go down in the hazmat outfits, but
I think it means his medical tricorder.
Right, okay. Surely he'd bring that all the time.
Nah, sometimes he just takes a regular one.
The doctor? Everyone else has got a regular one.
Yeah. Chekhov asks whether they should open up a channel, but Kirk wants to sneak up on him, although he abandons this plan in a moment or two.
Yeah, well, he says that they've already tried to destroy us, so we'll let them think that they've been successful, but they didn't. He's knocked them out. Because if they wanted to destroy them, surely they could have used the ultrasonics and then walked around and put headshots in them.
They could have.
But they didn't. They weren't that bothered about killing them.
No, it was only Severin that wanted to kill them. The rest of them just wanted to get to Eden. But Kirk's going to abandon this plan shortly, and we'll get to that. Scotty's left in charge with orders that if the Romulans show up, try and explain.
He's not the person
He won't do that, no.
So we're down on a planet.
I thought this looked a lot like the native Indian settlement that we saw in This Side of Paradise.
I thought it looked like Shore Leave.
Yeah. Either way, it's a sort of paradise.
Yeah, they accept that the legend of the planet's beauty was true.
It's fantastically beautiful, Spock says. Kirk says he's beginning to understand where they were coming from before trying to communicate with Severin, undermining his entire plan.
Yeah, we'll sneak up, but we'll let you know we're on our way when we get there. They spread out, and Kirk he starts to try and communicate when Chekhov shrieks in pain, having been burned after touching a plant.
Can't even touch a flower without moaning.
McCoy does some scanning and notes that all plant life, including the grass, is acidic. And Kirk, he says, oh, will our clothing protect them? Just normal clothing? No, it shouldn't.
Well, it depends how acidic. But given the wounds that we see in people, I wouldn't have thought a cotton pair of trousers is going to help you much.
Yeah.
Spock at this point finds Adam, who thankfully has died and isn't going to sing anymore.
Yes, that was one of the upsides of the episode. He's eaten some poisoned fruit, although you do see his finger moving if you looked.
That's just rigor mortis, it's twitching.
Right, okay.
Well, the sort of post.
Lucky it was just his finger then, eh?
Just as well. Kirk spots the shuttle at this point and they head over to it. It's marked Galileo 2.
Yes, well, we lost Galileo 1.
We did. But it's been used since anyway.
They open the door and find the others in there writhing in pain from burns on their naked hippie feet.
Yes, they stood in the grass without shoes and their feet have burnt off.
Severin comes out last and McCoy notes that he needed beamed up immediately.
But he refuses this, running off, shouting about something incoherent, climbing a tree and eating a poisoned fruit before dying.
I mean, why is this just a suicide?
I think this is his insanity. It's completely he's found he's Eden and it's not what he wanted. He can't cope with it. He's lost his mind completely.
Is that what you think? Is that what it's meant to be? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, maybe not, but that's my interpretation.
Maybe he's just daft.
Yeah, maybe. Irina is sad because the planet looked so nice.
It does, yeah.
We never get back to the plotline of him being highly infectious and whether it's going to affect anybody.
No, it's ignored.
It's completely dropped.
We're back up in the bridge.
Kirk tells Substitute Uhura to advise the starbase that they have the 4 survivors and are ready to beam them down.
Kirk asks Chekhov if he wants to attend this beaming down, but he would rather apologise for his conduct.
Quite right.
Which endangered everyone and is going to accept any disciplinary action. He should be at least suspended, perhaps sacked.
Weaken the brig.
Yeah.
But instead Kirk tells him that he, quotes, did what he had to do.
And as did the rest of them, including his friends. Firstly, they weren't his friends, and really, they did what he had. No, he didn't do what he had to do. He done what he shouldn't have done.
I think the idea here is that Kirk's come around to their way of thinking a little bit. He understands their motivations, and everyone's friends now.
Don't get it. It's not.
No, it's stupid.
It's stupid, isn't
Kirk's also, earlier on, told Starfleet to mark the incident as closed.
Okay. Is it closed?
Nope, but there you go. Irina shows up on the bridge as Chekhov's about to leave, and they briefly kiss, and she tells him to be incorrect occasionally, and he urges the opposite for her. Before Spock comes over and tells her not to give up on Eden, we will find it.
Yeah, or else they'll create it.
Yes. She thanks him and leaves, and Kirk says, we reach Mr. Spock. I didn't understand that when it was said at the start of the episode, and I understand it even less at this point.
Well,
what does he mean?
I took it, they were reaching for something else, for something better.
Oh, okay.
Again, in fairness, I think that the arc, the change that they went through, it's not particularly well written, but it's something that attempted to say, do you know what? Yeah, there's more to it than our initial beliefs and the way we think.
So not the worst episode in the series.
Yeah, it's my least favourite in the series. I mean, I think it's
better than the alternative factor, at least.
No, alternative factor is probably just a bit more boring, but this irritated. The singing just made I hated it.
The singing was bad, yeah.
Yeah, really, I couldn't watch it again. It was cringy.
Yeah.
And especially considering who was doing the singing. I was watching this going, I recognise him, and I looked it up and I was quite disgusted by the You know, the
scar on his CV.
Yeah. You can tell us about him when we get there.
Yeah, of course. So we've covered most of the questions I was going to ask you. What did Kirk mean at the end? You've done that. Pretty embarrassing for the Enterprise crew to get outwitted by a bunch of idiots.
Well, we found out they weren't. I think
two of them were educated.
Yeah, well, one of them was meant to be. Two of them meant to be geniuses. Severin and Tongo.
Okay, and Irina's been to Starfleet Academy.
Yeah, and she's I think she's quite smart.
But still, everyone else on the ship's been to Starfleet Academy.
Yeah.
So they shouldn't be outwitted.
Yeah, we see this all the time. They're not up to it. Their security is totally lax, and
well, that's it. Will the Enterprise ever make it more difficult for people to take over the entire ship from one room?
You'd like to think that they would put something in place after this, but they've not learned the lesson in the past. So why start now?
Khan took it over. Their own engineer took it over.
Yeah.
Some other people have taken it over.
Yeah, Riley.
Yeah. And then my last one. Do you think the hippies' position was understandable?
Yes, as I said earlier, I mean, I can sympathise with. I think both were extremes at the outset.
Caricatures of them.
Total caricatures. So yeah, I definitely have sympathy with people who don't want to live within the strict sort of regimes. Certainly of a federation, of a militaristic empire. I can see why people say, no, I don't want to. But it's like, as we alluded to, I also equally don't like the people who think, you know, that the laws any laws shouldn't apply to them, and they found some sort of loophole and they don't want to. You know, the rules should be applied fairly and for the benefit of society. So that you can't just go rogue and do whatever you like, you know, because then bad people would do bad things.
It's like the social contract concept.
Precisely. So them just wanting to go somewhere and do their own thing in peace. And yeah, I mean, maybe they're meant to be younger and they'll sort of then realise that, look, they've had that sort of hippie-ish lifestyle, and then they'll move on. Fair enough, most people do. You know, when you're younger, you tend to be a little bit, well, you've got less responsibilities and things. So yeah, but the whole sort of singing, their language, and that's another point. I don't, again in Star Trek, they're like hippies. They're referencing the language of 1960s Earth, and
too specific.
Even if these people were from Earth, but they're not. Some of them are alien. They wouldn't. Why would that be their point of reference? Why would they talk like this?
Unless it's organically
that sort of beat
developed in the
jazz
same way.
Yeah. Ah, no. So I didn't like that.
Okay.
I didn't like the look.
Okay. Trivia.
Go for it.
Original air date 21st of February 1969. Directed by David Alexander. This was his second episode, so you can hear more about him if you go back to the podcast for Plato's Stepchildren. The writer of the teleplay, at least, was Arthur Heinemann. I think the concept was a Dorothy Fontana one originally.
She should be embarrassed with herself.
This was the second of his 3 episodes, and you can hear more about him back on the podcast for Wink of an Eye. Skip Homeyer played Severin.
It's a very American name, isn't it? Or certainly Skip.
This was the last of his 2 appearances, so you can hear more about him by going back to the podcast for Patterns of Force. Victor Brandt played Tongo Rad. This was his second of 2 appearances. You can hear more about him by going back to the podcast for Ilan of Troyes. Mary Linda Raphael played Irina. This was her only Star Trek appearance. She also played roles on episodes of Ironside, One Life to Live, and As the World Turns, and she died in 2021 at the age of 76.
That's a shame.
Charles Napier played Adam. This was his only Star Trek role and came at the beginning of a long and prolific career that included films like...
Yeah, I mean, Rambo and Silence of the Lambs. Every time I've seen this guy, he plays a sort of gruff, tough, somebody in the army, that type of thing as well. To see him doing this, embarrassing himself here.
He was in the first 2 Austin Powers movies. He showed up on series like Knight Rider, The A-Team, Murder, She Wrote, and Star Trek Deep Space Nine. He died in 2011 at the age of 75. There's a very slight Columbo connection because he had a long-running professional connection with Jonathan Demme and appeared in 10 of his movies. And Demme, of course, directed the Columbo episode Murder Under Glass.
That is extremely slight and tenuous.
Tenuous, but it's the best we can do this week. Deborah Downey and Phyllis Douglas played the unnamed women who were part of the hippie gang. This was the second of 2 appearances for Douglas. You can hear more about her on the podcast for the Galileo 7. And it was Downey's only Star Trek role. She also appeared in The Hanging of Jake Ellis and The Divorcee, but stopped acting to focus on a career as an artist under the name Deborah Lyons, and she still takes commissions through her website, DeborahLyonsPortraits.com.
I'm going to commission her to do something,
yeah.
Let's do a crowdfunder for that.
Everyone chip in a tenner. Trivia-wise, there was no Uhura. As you heard, Lieutenant Palmer was back. You might remember her from The Doomsday Machine.
Mm-hmm.
It was apparently originally conceived that McCoy would have a daughter who was part of the group, but it didn't make the final script. That character was pushed back to season 4. That never happened. Severin, apparently based on the well-known LSD advocate Timothy Leary.
Mm-hmm. Makes sense.
This is the first time we hear Chekhov's middle name. I mentioned that during the episode. A lot of reused shots in the episode. The scene where everyone collapses from the sonic boom was from Spock's brain. The surface of Eden is a shot from Shore Leave. And we also see a shot on the planet from the Apple.
Yeah. I don't know if you're going to mention any Chekhov trivia, but apparently Walter Koenig was very unhappy with how his character was written, and I can understand why, because he was a very establishment, right-wingy type chap in this, and he's meant to be the younger, probably more liberal type, to play opposite Kirk and the rest of the Federation, and he came across as like a young Tory.
Well, you've said before, inconsistent characterisation and writing is one of your biggest bugbears with the series, so that's one to pick out.
Yeah.
And even the international titles are rubbish this week. It was a direct translation of either the title that we had or Journey to Eden in every country except for Japan, where they went with Jiu no Wakase Eden o Motomete, which means In Search of Eden, the Planet of Freedom.
Yeah, it's crap as well.
Yeah, boring. Next week, we've only got 4 to go.
Oh.
Yeah. Unless we do the movies, we'll see. 21st episode of Season 3, The Cloud Minders, featuring the Cloud City of Stratos, who I thought was one of the characters in He-Man.
Okay. Well, it can only be an improvement.
Let's hope so.
Until then,
cheerio.
Bye-bye.